and I will also help check that.
Oh, okay, super awesome. We're live, but let's hold on still a couple more minutes here.
Looks like we're missing Mark still. Talk to Mark, he'll definitely be here. And Katie.
Katie's here. Hi, Katie.
Wonderful. And Christy as well.
Okay. Looks like we're also missing Marianne.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Mark's here. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
So I think we'll just wait another few seconds here and then get started because there's, as you know, all kinds of things to get to today. So, or one big thing to get to today.
Yeah, I've talked to Marianne and Christy today both, so I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll be here soon.
Okay, super. Shall we get started then?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So hi everyone, welcome to this, I think our fourth meeting of this committee. I am in the lead role because we're sort of switching off as you may remember. And actually last week was going to be one of my weeks, but I was out sick, and a big thank you to Tiffany and Alex for, and all the rest of you for doing the thing here. I know from Alex and also watching last week that it was a hard week, that there was some confusion, that there was a lot of discussion, that definitely, some of that anyway falls on us for sure, and the sort of way that we set up the progression here. So I just wanted to first start by sort of asking for your or thanking you really for your patience with us. And we are human, all of us here, and we're constantly trying new things, and there's a number of new things in this part of the process, gathering feedback and trying to improve. So we appreciate everybody who reached out, and a bunch of people reached out through the week and gave us feedback of various kinds, and really appreciate that. There are a couple of things that I need to say right up front about just this sort of introductory material for this meeting that are absolutely going to prompt questions. Well, I shouldn't guarantee that, but I suspect they will. And they're mostly notices about what's going to happen next week, actually, and also things that we will be reaching out to folks by email to do. So because of how stacked this week is, because we got a little bit behind given last week, and the fact that we really need to get presenters lined up for that first weekend, and this is kind of our last shot, given that it's about 2 weeks out. You know, we're not terribly behind in terms of that. This was sort of the week where we really needed to have that done. That I'm going to plead if there is any possibility to send us questions by email about any of these items here. You know, if there's something that is absolutely urgent and needs to happen before we do this meeting, fair enough. But if there's any way you can hold questions and send those by email if you have them, or clarify with us immediately after the meeting, I'll stay on for a few minutes as well. That would be amazing. Thank you so much for that in advance. Let's see. Yeah, the first thing to mention is that next meeting, and we've been sort of teasing this for a while, But next meeting, a bunch of that meeting will be about talking about the process finally, and it's a good thing because we're there to the first meetings of the panel. And again, the process will be part of the meeting after that as well, the 2 meetings after that. But we definitely need to spend some time on that. As you know, there's some things that we've been saying, oh, we'll talk about that as sort of a process decision. We have an outline, so all that is coming, and we'll provide you with enough time to look it over and have a discussion about that next week. So process questions. I guess the other thing I'll say here is that although we're sort of pushing to get presenters on the table, presenters ready for that first weekend of the panel, that still doesn't preclude the conversation about how many presenters or exactly how that happens. We have set aside in our process designers, I think maybe Alex mentioned last time, I forget, a maximum of about 12 spots in that first weekend. I think you know that already. But again, we've had a little feedback from at least one person, I think, about that. And there are still openings there. The reason for doing the process we're going to do today, which is all about prioritization, is so that we can get this continuous list of folks, that we're not selecting a hard number of 12 or whatever. We are getting to maximum consensus around a continuous list of prioritized presenters, because it should be noted that some of those folks, even who may rise to the very top, may not be available in these first sessions, so we'll have to pass them over and continue down the list. So this is, as we do in the panel, we really prioritize prioritization as a method of decision making, because it allows for some flexibility, allows for a large group like this to select among a much larger group of potential presenters, etc. So anyway, all that was just to say that none of what's happening today precludes that conversation about who is speaking and for how much time. Or I should say, how many people are speaking and for how much time. This is who. This is sort of the who, ranking the who. Okay, now on to another topic really fast. So stakeholder written statements. We've mentioned that a few times, and hopefully you've been thinking about what you might want to write there. And if you haven't, start thinking about that this coming week. We will have time next week to work on them a bit during this meeting, but not a ton of time. Because, as I mentioned, there is still that process piece that's so vital for next time. Remember, this is intended as your opportunity to briefly introduce the perspective of your organization and your stakeholder category to the panel, and your views on the topic. Our recommendation will be, is currently and will be next week when we discuss this more, a 150 word limit for this to hopefully balance the panel's capacity to receive this info. That is a lot of words still, because it's times 14. But again, we'll come back to that next week, but just as sort of a gauge of what we're thinking about right now. One more thing really quick. In addition, we'll be proposing that IAC members have a bit of time on the first and second days of the panel to actually speak directly to the panel. And I think we've mentioned that, I don't know if we mentioned that as a sure thing or a possibility, but it is we hope that it's a sure thing. We hope that you will think that's valuable to you, to not just have a written statement, but also sort of a verbal statement to the panel, 5 minutes each, and then some time for questions. And our proposal, and I'm hoping that somebody can put this in chat, is for this to happen in 2 different chunks, on Friday, May 13th in the afternoon, and Saturday, May 14th in the morning. And you won't be, it's not come to both of these. We'll be doing a little, a little poll to place people in one or the other based on your availability. And alternatively, because we know some folks won't be able to make either of those, a pre-recorded 5-minute video where you can speak to the panel to hopefully have that same opportunity. So that's just another thing, again, open to that as part of the process discussion next week, but just wanted to put a bug in your ear about that. We're going to start to schedule those, even though we know that discussion hasn't been had, just to make sure that we're ready. If you decide next week, no, actually, it should only be 3 minutes, or if you decide next week, no, actually, we'd like to talk to the panel on the 2nd, later in June, or whatever the case is, we'll deal with that at that point, but just so we can sort of keep moving forward. And I don't even want to throw out too many options of other possibilities. This is what we're proposing, and we will talk about more why sort of our recommendations, but again, these are the kind of things that you'll be discussing as a group next week. Lastly, I guess that was the last thing. Again, I'll just pause here for just a second to see if there's any vital, urgent questions for the moment. I see Katie with your hand up.
You just rattled off a bunch of information that I could not comprehend half of it because you were talking so fast. And last meeting, I felt like went so rushed that it just wasn't a great feeling. So I know you have a lot on your schedule. I know you have a lot to do, but I don't even know how to comprehend and take in and try to even take notes on everything you just said. And did you just say we're going to be speaking?
So that's our proposal to you, is that you would actually have time to speak directly to the panel. But point taken, we'll write this up and put it in an email as well.
Is this new, or is this something like for us speaking? Why are we writing if we're going to speak?
Well, it's an opportunity. If you don't want to speak to the panel, that's a-okay as well. I mean, we're trying to create more opportunities if you want them to speak to the panel. But of course, all of this is optional. We hope that, and maybe next time, if this group decides, hey, no, actually, we'd rather just submit written statements, great. Just throwing out, just sort of identifying some opportunities here, and when we talk about to sort of prep for that conversation next week. Kim, I see your hand up.
Thank you. I have some questions about, or a question, I guess, about your earlier comments and how, excuse me, additional questions and conversation would be happening via email. Would that be a group email situation so that we are all included in the questions that are asked, partly to eliminate redundancy and partly just so we're all understanding perspectives of each stakeholder in that group? Or will it just be Healthy Democracy responding to individual emails, or will there be a group stream about questions that come up?
I think that's a great suggestion, and we probably should have been doing that before. Sometimes we have created a Google Doc where we track all the questions and all the answers to the questions. So let's start that starting now. That's important. Thanks. Amazing. Okay, thank you. I know that was a bunch. I should have prefaced that, Katie, with you don't need to retain this. You don't need to take notes on all this. I'm just putting this out here as a prep for next time. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It just took me by surprise that already our written pieces that are only 150 words are due on Tuesday. So it's a bit surprising, but that's fine.
Well, I'm sorry that was surprising. Yeah, well, hopefully there'll be a bit of time. Did I say Tuesday? Okay, yeah, I guess it's Tuesday. I guess it is Tuesday. Right, okay, cool. All right. Well, thanks for rolling with that with us, and sorry you're not feeling warned on that. Yeah, properly. All right, let's carry on here. Onward we go into the next item here. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this prioritization process is intended to work. And some of you have already started on this a little bit, and some of you haven't, and that's just fine. We're going to talk about how the voting process works and some notes about it and the reasons for it. And that's actually where I'm going to start. So the idea behind this sort of multi-stage prioritization is for the first stage to help you in narrowing down the discussion. There are so many names on the list. There are so many people here in the room. It's not possible to sort of do this without some kind of mathematical method, without getting a bunch of votes on a bunch of things all together and calculating them, so at least we can start to see who's rising to the top. It's not that, you know, the whole thing should happen on pure math, but hopefully that's a way to get everybody's voice sort of equally into the room and everybody an equal chance to participate in this. So that's why we sort of are doing this in two pieces. And this is what you heard about, I think, previously. What was intended to happen last week was that we would do a prioritization process at the beginning. That's that voting sheet that you've already been sent and started to work on. And that we'll have a lot of time here to work on this. And then we'll come back and look at who's risen to the top. We'll take a little break, come back, look at what names have sort of risen to the top, and then have a go around where each person in this group will be able to take just a couple of minutes, because of the size of this group, to give a pitch about, you know, what happened. And the reason why we don't do that before this is just because there are so many names on this list. Excuse me, but it doesn't mean anybody is disappearing. Well, I'll get to that in a second. It doesn't mean anyone's disappearing, but it is so that we can just start to organize. Then we'll discuss. Then there'll be time for you all to re-vote, to continue to vote, to change your votes. That's the way to say it. Sorry. And you can, in fact, do that all during this meeting. Those sheets are open to you now and have been for a while, and will continue to be through this meeting. And so as people are sort of making their pitch during that period for, okay, this person that seems to have risen to about, you know, point number 6, you know, line number 6 here, they're kind of duplicating somebody who's in line number 8. Maybe we want to think about just, you know, choosing them. Please vote for number 6, not number 8. And we'll push you to sort of make pitches for who folks should be voting for in this process. So we'll do our best. I mean, you all will do in the course of this process, we'll do our best to find folks with the highest level of support. But as you can guess, it's not necessarily the case that folks who rise to the very top are necessarily going to be the presenters in the first weekend, because they may not be available. It doesn't mean they'll be disappearing. It means that we'll continue to go down that list in priority order. So that's why getting a good list where hopefully the top, you know, 10, 20 are ones that feel pretty good and are a good, you know, sort of a rounded mix. We'll get as close to that as possible, but that's sort of what this multi-stage prioritization is for. A little vote at the beginning, just start to put numbers on the page. This go around, make a pitch, continue to update those votes as people may convince you or not, and then some time after the meeting as well to finish up and change your votes, continue to change your votes if you'd like. A few other notes here. Nothing, as I mentioned, will be lost from this list unless you yourself have removed one of your own nominations or combined them with one of your other nominations. We haven't done anything to this list other than to make those notes that you've requested over the last week. So that the reason why nothing is lost is that we want to, this will become the menu that goes to the panel. So this is sort of the same product that will be used for getting those first presenters in the room, and then also to send to the panel to give them an idea of who else they might want to select from. So that's why it's important all the way down to the lowest supported person on this list for that to go on to the panel and for them to be able to see the full list. So just to reiterate, we're not trying to distill this list down to sort of a minimum number of agreed upon absolute people, because it's not an absolute. They might not be available. We don't know until next week of the discussion exactly how many people are going to be presenting to the panel in this first weekend. What we need is this prioritized list with the highest concentration of agreement sort of bubbling to the top. That's the idea here. A couple other notes really fast. So it is okay to abstain. It is okay to not vote for someone. That's fine. Just leave it. Just leave that line blank. You don't need to put a check mark in those boxes. And that'll just count as sort of 0 points. So if somebody can put in the sort of point values here, and you've already seen these if you worked with the document, recommend sort of gives 3 points, support gives 2 points, tolerate gives 1 point. If you don't vote on a particular line, they just get 0 points from you. And if you marked cannot support, then that person gets -1 points from you. So you can see how this works. We add up all the votes for all the different things bounce around, and people start to bubble to the top that have the highest level of support. As you're working in this document, and I hope I don't think this made too much of a difference already, but hopefully not. Please only use those check boxes. Please don't do anything else to these pages, because it can mess up the way that the formulas work in terms of counting. So please don't add columns, don't add rows, don't drag rows around, only use those check boxes. All right. Remember, don't worry, this isn't your last chance. This is just this first kind of like, let's get everybody's thoughts onto the table. So let's start to move things around. You'll be able to change your votes all throughout this meeting and after this meeting. If somebody says something convincing and you'd like to change your vote and feel comfortable for it, go ahead and just do that in real time. All right, I think Alex has a couple of things to say, and then we'll start here.
I do, yeah, and this speaks to Kim's question, just finishing the conversation about redundancy. We did open the opportunity for folks to send us written proposals to withdraw any of their own nominations or consolidate those into additional or other lines of the sheet. And Google is apparently really not my friend this month, because it just decided to boot me out. So I wonder if we could, did that answer your question, Anne? Okay, perfect. I am getting back in and will share my screen momentarily. Apologies.
Wait, Alex, you're saying that you sent us an invite to update or remove items from the list?
So in the email that I sent everybody individually, there was one of those bullet points invited folks to send written emails with any of your own nominations who you wanted to withdraw. So this is just, an opportunity to do that. If there are duplicates that still exist, that's perfectly fine. There's no risk of vote splitting, as I said in that note. Okay, I might not be able to share my screen, but everybody should be able to see, or Lynn, are you able to share your screen with me?
Yeah, totally. Just which document?
All nominations.
All nominations, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't know what just happened here.
We're technology. Never can tell. Okay, here we go.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to read through, there were 2 folks who took us up on that. I'm going to read through these proposals kind of all at the same time. And then if there are any huge objections, we'll leave a moment for that, but otherwise want to keep moving. So we'll start at line 43. Diana added, can you actually go to the original nominations tab? Because that has the formatting that will make it a little bit more clear. So up to line 43, Diana has just added a name there, Matthew Johnson. Diana, I realize just to keep consistent, you did suggest collapsing lines 108 and 109, which were Alana's nominations, into 43. I think I'd like to keep those distinct for now, just because we said no to others who kind of wanted to change other people's recommendations, nominations. So there's this change on that line, and then moving down the list, we have 46 removed, 47 removed, just clarified in the chat with you, Anne, that there was a duplicate in one of your emails and then a consolidation. So just all three of those were consolidated into line 69. And then 56 is the next one that is removed. 77. You'll see there as we pass it, 69, just line 348 was folded into that one. 77 taken off, and then 81 as well. So because the formatting won't auto-populate into all of your individual sheets, you'll just see in brackets removed, and then feel free to not vote on those people. So just wanted to do this transparently in the meeting without spending too much time here. Wanted it to be transparent. So a moment for any serious objections to those changes.
This isn't to those changes directly, but I mentioned last meeting, it looks like some nominations fell off that were there, such as Redwood Empire Food Bank and Red Cross. I don't know if I just am totally missing them, but I don't see them anywhere on there.
Steve, okay, let me go do some additional investigation there. Thank you for raising that. Oh.
No.
I'll go back into the Google form and just make sure that there are no problems. But let's carry on.
Super. Yeah, it won't affect the ability for people to vote on other items. So we'll go back and make sure that all those are there. Sorry about that if we missed one or two. But now, yeah, there's time here. There's just open time for you all to use. Some of you, as I've said, have already started. We'll jump into a breakout room if we can help anyone on the tech side to, but I think most of you have already been through the process of getting into this document, or your version of this document, your voting page. So go there now and start working through the document. It's quite a few lines there to look at, we know. So there'll be substantial time in here. I think let's check in again in about 15 minutes and we'll continue to check in.
If folks could just put in the chat when they're done, if you have access to the chat, that would be helpful and we can keep track.
I should mention I'm seeing a couple of other notes in the chat to remove certain folks or combine them. And just a note that the voting that we're doing today won't really be affected by that because it's a prioritization. So we can do that after the fact. I think it's probably safer to do that after this meeting, actually, just because of the way that all the spreadsheets are set up. Well, I don't know, Alex, if you want to put a remove by those, I guess maybe it doesn't matter. Yeah. In any case, it won't affect the voting because we'll still see things rising to the top.
Sure. Yeah, I can begin to put remove by those. It just might not auto-populate instantly.
Cool. Just doing a little check here. We're not out of time or anything. Just want to check in and see how folks are doing, and also address a question really fast. Jerry asked about the lines that say remove on them. Are we asking you to remove them? No. Just leave them there. Leave them be. Just ignore them. And there's a couple other things happening in chat that maybe Alex, you can help me catch up with. I haven't seen anybody say that they're done, which is totally understandable, absolutely expected. So we will carry on here.
Yeah, I think I'm responding to everything in chat just to give folks quiet time.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks.
find that email.
Hold on.
Click it, go to junk.
To flag for Lynn and Tiffany, it looks like we have a little snafu with the group totals. So everybody else, we're aware of it. I'm going to call you, Tiffany.
Awesome, thanks.
Get that sorted.
You're muted, Lynn.
I know we're just fixing a little issue on the in the spreadsheet real fast. Carry on.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for holding on there. Jerry, thanks for the notice that I was muted. It was on purpose, but it's usually not. So I think in order to have time to have some discussion here, to have a full go around of everybody, and to see what this is looking like, we're going to take a snapshot of where things are right now. A number of people have finished, but I'm not sure whether everybody has. If you haven't, don't worry about it. That's not a huge deal. So we're going to take a quick snapshot of that and then come back. Let's just take a sort of 2 to 3 minute stretch break if we could, just so that we can do a little copying and pasting over here, or continue on if you're still working on it and still want to continue voting. Carry on. Be back in just 2 minutes. Okay, I do believe we have a filtered list. So let me just order those really fast here. And we can start to take a look at, that's the wrong direction, sorry.
Would you like me to share my screen with this now, Lynn?
Oh, that would be wonderful if you could. Yeah, thanks. All right, we can start to see who's rising to the top. Let me just make these columns a little bit wider so we can see what's happening here. Okay. And remember, you can carry on voting all throughout the rest of this meeting. But let's start a go around. Let's just take a minute here to just look at this list. Look at who is rising to the top here or what organizations. And be thinking about, so the question here is going to be, who's missing? Who maybe needs to rise into this top of the list? Who might be duplicates? Still looking for that. And remember, duplicates are not necessarily a bad thing here because one person could decline and we're just going to carry on down the list. So duplicates not necessarily a bad thing, and nobody's falling off the list here. So it's more about really what's missing, or you may want to make a pitch for what should stay, so that as people are continuing to re-vote, they can say, okay, I'm going to keep that one at recommend. That's great. That one should really stay, or I'm going to bump somebody up to recommend, or maybe bump somebody down. We're going to go round robin, and if you don't have anything to say, absolutely no worries. As usual, I'm going to start randomly at the top of my participants list here. And no, we're not going to go that way because it's in alphabetical order very conveniently. So I'm going to go as it is on my screen because I think that's more random. And as you can tell by the time here, we don't have a ton of time for each person to speak. I'm not going to put on a timer, but if it gets to beyond a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I'm gonna ask to move on just to make sure we get everybody in the room here. And please be specific about what you're seeing. That, hey, this person, please upvote this one, or please keep this one. So this is the time to be specific. Okay, let's start with Kim. You're the first person on my screen. Go ahead.
So I noticed that there seems to be a lot of common ground around emergency services and the general use of the fairgrounds for what has become an annual fire season threat for us in our community. I am a little bit, the city organizations or entities or offices to see, I don't know if we consolidated those. I understand the development is important, but I think that hearing from a group about land use or an individual from the city about land use and limitations on the property would be important. And so I'd like to see that moved up a little bit. And certainly the neighbors and the current tenants on the fairgrounds property would be important as well. I think further consolidation could happen just in some of my own nominations, I think. Line 40, Ms. Hunt could be consolidated into the other FFA nomination, which is a little higher up on the sheet. And falls under line.
And actually, Kim, if I could just jump in there, if you can send us any additional sort of things like that by email,
okay.
Just so we can make sure to get through everybody here, if that's all right.
Sorry.
No
Line
worries
40.
at all.
Okay, and then just looking further down the line at some of the other folks. certainly potential folks or organizations that would use the fairgrounds in terms of money or financially generating more financial outcome for the fairgrounds, I think should be raised a little higher on the list.
All right. I think if I can stop you right there, I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure to get to everybody.
No, you're fine.
Accept my apologies.
It's fine.
Can we go straight on to Ingrid and again, please to keep your comments brief, if it's possible.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to point out that Heather Hines, our development director, I think is a number 2 on the list. So I think that should cover that request. And I also see Eric Danley at number 19, who would be the one that could speak to the limitations. And then there's also the finance director. So there's 3 city people kind of up in that top tier. I can't actually see very far down, but it does look like, you know, both the city and the fairgrounds are represented. There's some diversity. So, you know, it feels like there's good representation at the top, but, you know, I agree. There's always more. The users of the fairgrounds, obviously can speak to how they're using the fairgrounds now. But probably also, you know, just thinking to the future of understanding what's there now and understanding what could be, I think will be important.
Thanks so much, Ingrid. Let's go to Jerry. I think you're muted. There you go.
I got it. Yeah. Where to begin? I see a decided preference, I think, for current tenants. I see 3 of them listed down there. I see a number of food operatives. What I do not see is anything that represented, as Ingrid said, other possible uses for the fairgrounds. Everything here is, in essence, rearranging the furniture. And I have to say I'm disappointed in this. I think there's a number of well-intentioned nominations, but I don't think the nominations, as I'm looking at them now, will go towards truly finding, for the committee to find what is the best use of this property. And the Petaluma High School music boosters, I don't understand why they would be in there at all. So I would like to see several nominations moved up there. So.
And would you like to say who those are just very quickly?
Well, Veronica Olson, Maura Sullivan, Pete Gang.
Okay.
We need people that will speak to what the alternative use for the fairgrounds is, not just redoing the fairgrounds as it is now.
All right, super. Thanks for that. Let's move on here. And please, that goes for everyone. If you can make specific recommendations to your fellow committee members, that will be most helpful to everyone. Onita.
I don't see anything wrong with the list. I think there's a lot of redundancy in it. I think that the committee may decide on their own that they want to see some different people as they hear what can be done with the fairgrounds. There is some rules and regulations and zoning and other things of interest that they will find out as they get into those presentations from the city as to what can be done, which will then allow them to explore what they could be asking to see. So, you know, I'm sure this is not going to be the final list that we present. You've only gone, you know, I mean, it's kind of hard to come up with a list of presenters when you're asked to be limiting it to, so, you know, to 12 to 15 or something. It's awfully hard to come up with that list out of what we've begun with.
Yeah, I can absolutely recognize that. And yes, this is not by any means the final, few folks. There'll be lots of folks speaking to the panel. And as you point out, the panel will have this multiple processes to fill in gaps. Hector, I see you next on the list.
I think the list, for the first look at it, I think it's kind of moving in the right direction. I'm sure there'll be more changes, and I see Matt Sharkey is like 21, and he's the representative for the Speedway, and I know he had a bunch of other good stuff too that he wanted to speak about. So I think I'm good right now. Thank you.
Super. Thanks so much, Hector. Let's go to Diana.
Hi, I would just like to advocate for a couple of groups that I don't see in the top 15. And that is a couple of the neighbors are on the group, including Matt McGuire in line 85. As a neighbor, as a longtime resident of the Fairgrounds neighborhood, former city council person, and very active in the community, I think you have an excellent perspective that the panel should hear. About the future uses also. And Moira Sullivan in line 85 also has extensive background in environmental planning. In terms of the future uses of the fairgrounds, I think we could make some recommendations that really open up people's minds and hearts on what we could achieve in reimagining the fairgrounds or part of the property. So I would recommend the architects on line 49 and 54 for that. Really, if you can imagine, what if it was like Golden Gate Park? What if it was like Central Park? Safe streets. Also, I see one of the Teddy Herzog at number 14. I think if you can imagine trying to get around Petaluma, cars don't work very well with traffic, but bike and pedestrian pathways, if we could have really good ones through the fairgrounds, that would make the middle of town much more manageable, much safer, much healthier environment for everyone. So I think having Teddy and Safe Streets go up a little bit. He's line 22, and now he's number 14 on the list. Thank you.
Okay, super. Thank you so much, Diana. Let's go to Anne.
Thanks. Yes, I guess first a general comment. I feel like we are sort of heavy on city representatives, and I'd love it if we could sort of say, let's leave it to Ingrid to communicate to city staff what this group feels need to be conveyed, and then have city staff like designate 1 or 2 people at most to free up more slots. I also want to concur with Diana's comments about Teddy Herzog Safe Streets for the same reason. Veronica Olson, as Jerry has mentioned, same reason. I feel we need some visionaries who can really sort of open up imaginations about how we both accommodate the things that people love about the fairgrounds now and create some new opportunities, new connectivity, opportunities to reduce climate impacts, which are so important to the city, and having a place that is, again, safe for pedestrians and bikers, and is a gathering place in the middle of the city, can really go a long ways towards furthering our climate goals. And would like to hear, therefore, again, Peter Calthorpe, line 49, Dave Alden, line 51, Eric DeCoke, line 53, and Carl Elefante, line 54. Also, line 69, one of the 3 speakers represented there, Mary Dooley, Delinda Fisher, Veronica Olson, all of whom have given a lot of thought to how these many, many uses could be accommodated in the same space. And also love to see line 76, a circular economy expert, somebody who can, again, look at the community and say, hey, there's a great opportunity to be more diverse and create new opportunities. And finally, I do feel it's really important that we have Indigenous leaders speak. And there are many lines here. I'm not, particularly attached to one or the other. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Anne. Let's go to John.
Hey, I think the list looks decent. I think there's some fair representation. I would have to disagree with the gentleman that spoke earlier about rearranging the furniture. I think I don't think there's anything being wrong with rearranging the furniture, and if that's what people want, then that would be an okay decision. If that's not what people want, then that would be an okay decision as well. So I think everyone put in a lot of work and a lot of time creating this list, and I think it came out how it was supposed to come out. Although people are kind of towards the bottom, but I'm okay with that if it's the group consensus. So I'm good with the way it looks right now.
All right, thanks very much, John. Let's go to Anna.
Thank you. I guess I'm going to insist with what I said last meeting. Don't get me wrong, the staff from Petaluma City, I would love all of them to be part of this, but as a support. So that way we can open up more spaces for more people to come up. Because I really support all of them, but as a support for the other organizations. Like set the limit. You can do so much of this. Oh, okay, then those are my limits. I don't know if I explain myself.
Okay, thanks. Let's go to Katie.
I agree with some of the other comments that the city has a lot of representation in those top 10 spots or 12 spots. So, getting maybe someone from the Fair Board, just see what their visions are and, and what they would like to see happen with the fairgrounds, because they're the ones that work in it and on it, and with all the tenants. And then I might suggest moving Stephanie Larson down a bit, and in her place putting someone from like Western Fairs or CDFA in there. They've been through this, been there, done that with all these other fairgrounds who have to go through climate things and cities and housing development, and just to hear ideas of what other places have done and how to support everyone in this whole process, I think would be useful. I'd like to see some of the tenants and neighbors as well. And there was a comment about the music festival, and it looks like Petaluma High School Music Boosters might be on there, but the music festival, I think because it brings in so much money for education that supports those programs. Maybe not specifically the Petaluma High School Music Boosters, but someone from that organization maybe could speak with a student from the music, or someone from the Music Boosters, just to let people know about the education or the money that education gets and those programs get from that use. But that's all I have right now.
Okay, thanks very much, Katie. Let's go to Mark.
I think the city has good representation. I would have thought there would have been some kind of defaults that the current tenants and the city representatives would have been on there automatically and not even have to be voted on. I do like the idea of having some more vision to what the future could hold to be further up the list. In my own category, I tried to consolidate Northby Animal Services and obviously Halter Project, which we work really well together. I would like to see that further up the list, but Cal OES is on there, and so there's a lot of duplicates there. But other than that, the list looks pretty good to me.
Thanks very much, Mark. Let's go to Marion.
I would like to see the housing, Burbank, and the other housing group moved higher. I think we need to look at all possible considerations for the fairgrounds. And it's my opinion going forward, particularly with inflation, that we need to do something to make sure that kids that are raised here in Petaluma have, as they grow, as they begin to have families, have the ability to live here. And the affordability issue is forcing a lot of our homegrown kids to move someplace else. The other issue from my perspective is that with inflation being the way that it is, and cost of commuting moving higher with gas prices and so on, the communities in the future who are going to benefit the most will be those that can house their own workforce. And so affordable housing works in there. I would also, to agree with several people who spoke earlier, I would like to see the neighbors moved higher up on the group as well.
All right, thanks very much, Marion. And last on my list here is Christy.
Hi, I'm extremely disappointed in this list. I think it's been hugely forgotten that we are a state agency and the state has no representation at the top of this list. The city is very represented, our local government, but we're a government agency. We're governed by the state, ran by the state, and I don't see CDFA anywhere up in there. I don't see F&E anywhere up in there. I don't see any representation from the governor's office. Our lease is not with the city and the fair. The lease is with the 4th DAA, a branch of CDFA and the city. So I would really like to see just anyone from CDFA go up that list, as well as someone from Western Fairs Association, because they can really speak to the benefits of having the state involved in managing the fairgrounds, the benefits, the tax benefits, the economic impact benefits. I'm also a little disappointed to see the lack of representation from current event holders, such as the, like Yais Novella, Renee, Felix Ortiz. Like, I hear a lot of talk about wanting to have diversity in these fairgrounds. And it's a little bit ironic because every time we do a Latin community event, we get several complaints. So like, we really want to see that. I feel like we should let those people speak and how it affects their livelihood. So I'd like to see those people voted up. Yeah, it's very heavy city representation at the top. Additionally, I feel like we're jumping the gun a little bit. I feel like I heard someone say it's hard to narrow down to 15 people out of such a diverse list. Before we can really get people involved in like the future vision, I think we need to talk about who's going to talk about the legalities of what can be the future vision. Because we really have to take into consideration this panel has very limited time. And if we want to best utilize their times, we should first figure out what can be the vision and then talk about who's going to talk about those potential visions. Because if it's not even possible to do housing here because of zoning or because of the bond that this grounds was sold on, that should be established first so that we then get the people we want up front. I just feel like we did, like I heard someone else say too, there should have been automatic people like state lawyer, city lawyer, historians. Like there should have been automatic people before trying to narrow in this really diverse list.
Thanks, Christy. And some of that will be relevant to the discussion next time as well. I think about the way that this first weekend is structured. All right, we are at time. Amazing. Thank you all so much for helping me get through everyone in that short amount of time. I'm sorry to have to rush us a bit, and we did both parts of this process. I wanted to just let you know that this document will continue to be open all through this week and into your meeting next week. But please make revisions to it as soon as possible, because we also need to start scheduling some folks, which may not, end up being even the majority of folks, we don't know, but we need to start reaching out. So the sooner you update your votes, if you have updates to make, then the sooner they'll be factored in, and every day we'll come back to this. We'll take a snapshot at the beginning of the day. We'll reach out to folks that are at the top of the list, and we'll do that every single day. So as soon as you can update your votes, then the more influence they have. That said, this is by far not the last time that we've said that a bunch of times, but I just want to reiterate that this is the first of your work on this. You've got another meeting next week, then the panel will have its first sessions, and then you have 2 meetings following up with that. The panel, meanwhile, will have an opportunity in its first weekend of some kind. We plan, at least, that they will be doing a gaps analysis. Of course, all of that is subject to our discussion next week, but I think they will need to do some kind of gaps analysis in that first weekend of here's who we've heard from, here's who we haven't heard from. We're digging into the menu. They're going to continue to dig into the menu in future weeks. So yeah, this is only the start to this. I really appreciate all of your patience. All the time, as somebody mentioned, you put an incredible amount of time into nominating folks and writing all those statements that will be so useful to the panel in terms of understanding who these folks are and why they're important. Yeah, can't thank you enough. Again, I'll be around here for a little while after this meeting. Alex, anything that I'm missing? Okay. Super. Any absolutely burning things from anyone before we leave as a full group? I'm not seeing any hands. So thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
And Alex, I'm assuming that you've got the various stuff that's in chat here. I know we can get the chat record later and all that, but
yeah, I just saved the record, and I know Tiffany was looking at it. I was busy taking notes for that last conversation, but we'll make sure that any loose ends, unless any loose ends are still here in the meeting.
for sure. And let's turn off the live stream as well, it being the official